All right, so this is Chats About God, cut number 1. So my name's Tom Neal. I'm here with Dan Schlarb, and we are going to have a discussion about God. Now, the fun part is I was walking to and from the beach, and Dan and I noticed we crossed paths a lot, and we said, hey, what are you up to? What's your name? Blah, blah, blah. We got to know each other. He got to know I think a little bit differently, and I got to see he thinks a little bit differently, and we started talking about what I feel is one of the most important conversations. I have many friends that we have great conversations about business, but what I see is even more important is about life, about peace of mind, about living an extraordinary life. And that revolves back to who is God, what is God, and how can we understand that to a degree of living life at the level we're capable of living, full of joy and all that fun stuff. So Dan, welcome to this Chats About God, and I guess where do we even kick it off? I mean, what do you feel is a good place to start to share with these fine people some of the insights we've been discussing?
Yeah, the thing is, it's an amazing thing that I'm just thankful that, I'm walking one way and you're walking the other way.
Mm-hmm.
For some reason, we decided, hey, stopped and started talking, right?
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, in a couple minutes,
Yep.
I could tell, man, this guy, you have an open mind. And
Mm-hmm.
I remember, I don't know, like 10, 11, 12 years ago, I went to therapy.
Mm-hmm.
I was going to therapy about something. And I remember my therapist saying, well, Dan, the truth is, most people are closed.
Right.
And I've talked to other people about some things
Mm-hmm.
about God and stuff. And man, I could tell when you were able to hear.
Mm-hmm.
You were hearing.
Yeah.
And so you have an open mind, and you just don't get that every day. So anyway, we started talking, and next thing you know, we're meeting over at my place and hanging out, and so here we are. But it all started with me is I grew up in what they call the Fundamentalist Baptist.
Mm-hmm.
It was a religion, but they don't want to. If you asked them that, they'd say no.
Mm-hmm.
But I learned a lot of things when I came out of that, and I didn't come out of it until I was like 34 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And so I completely indoctrinated, completely agreed with the message that was given to me. I defended it.
Mm-hmm.
I justified it.
Yep. As anybody who's good at being indoctrinated would do, right?
Yeah.
The beliefs are worth...
It's just what you do,
right.
because
standing up for.
You're convinced of it, And so it's interesting to me that when I think I was like, this really started happening to me when I was like 27 years old.
Mm-hmm.
Probably around then.
Just the dots were connecting.
Like something time
felt
out,
off,
And I'm just so thankful that I didn't say, oh, this is all,
Mm-hmm.
BS, I
really... Deeper, right?
Yeah, what I really did is says, hey, God, I want to know the truth, because I think there's more to you than this.
Yeah.
Just a set of rules. And, right living and, all that kind of stuff.
Right.
And I truly wanted to know him.
Mm-hmm.
How do you think,
Mm-hmm.
And so he put me through some stuff.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah.
He put me through some stuff.
Here's boot camp, right?
Yeah,
you want to get to know me? Here you go.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I ended up on the floor in the dark. And I laid on the floor for, I don't know, months. I took my Bible, I thought that was it,
Mm-hmm.
That's how you know God. And I put it on the shelf.
Mm-hmm.
And I just talked to him about it. I said, hey, I want to know who you are. Tell me the truth. And when I pick up that buck,
mm-hmm.
I want to see what you want me to see.
Mm-hmm.
Not what somebody told me I need to see.
Mm-hmm.
I want to see what you want me to see. And anyway, and here I am. I've got a wife. I've got 2 kids, and all they've ever known is going to church, you know. And what do? I'm sitting. I never forget it, like yesterday. Just in a state. I mean, I literally remember sitting in the church in the foyer, and I was getting ready to go into the auditorium to go into the church and listen to the message, and I could not get off of that chair. I remember sitting there looking. I was literally looking at the entrance, and then I was looking out the outside door, and everything, when I was sitting there, everything was telling me, this is wrong, Dan.
Right.
It would be wrong for you to walk out that door. This is wrong.
Yep.
And but I couldn't get up and walk into the auditorium.
Wow.
I got up and walked out the door, and I thought, holy crap, you know, I'm going to get struck down any moment, you know. And here I was thinking about, man, I'm married, I got 2 kids. You know, what am I doing? But I went home, and I didn't know what I was doing. You know, and so I was like a clean slate. You know, he was gonna
start from scratch. Yep.
He was gonna start telling me. I didn't understand where it was going, and I'm glad I didn't, because I'd probably think, what the heck? What, you know,
Yeah.
You kidding me? And I did go through some of that. Are you kidding me?
Right.
You know. But anyway, what happened was I thought, well, you know, because what happened after that, like people would come up to me and say, oh, well, you know, you just had a bad experience, church experience. You're just going to the wrong place, you know. So, you know, I did. I went to a lot of different churches and checked things out, and but you know what? At the end of the day, when I peeled the onion, it was the same message. I mean, the music might have been different, and I enjoyed the music, and you know, the carpet might have been different color,
right,
and that kind of thing. But at the end of the day, when you peeled the onion, the message was, these are the things that are right. These are the things that are wrong. This is what you ought to be doing. This is what you ought not to be doing.
Right.
And I heard the grace word. Now I heard the grace word. Grace, grace, Jesus, Jesus. But it was still, at the end of the day, they were mixing, you know, law and grace all day long. And it was clear to me, but I don't think it was clear to anybody else.
And that cuts right to the chase. The law versus grace.
Right.
Right.
And so they were mixing law and grace, and I don't think they realize they are. I think if you went and talked to them about that, oh no.
Right.
And
for people watching this, they may not know the distinction between law and grace.
Right.
Can you give us that understanding?
Right.
What's that mean? Law versus grace.
So basically, like this, right? People, I always told people you ought to read the Bible. That'd be a good thing. But you know, before you pick this thing up, you probably ought to know what it is.
It's a good thing to know, right?
You know what I mean? You ought to know what you're reading. And I wish that somebody had told me that. You know?
So what is it?
But this is the Old Covenant age. Now, the publishers, they did this thing called the New Testament and the Old Testament. Okay? But this is the Old Covenant age. And it represents the Old Covenant age. Now, does it speak of the New Covenant in it? Yeah, absolutely. It speaks of it in Jeremiah and Hebrews. But just so you understand in a nutshell, the Old Covenant is the garden through Moses up to the cross. And at the death of Christ, he ushered in the New Covenant. And so the New Testament is not the New Covenant. Okay?
Right.
And a lot of people
That's a
hear
mind
that all
bender,
the
right?
time.
That's a mind bender, right?
You go to church for 60 years and people are telling me the New Testament's the New Covenant.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so from the garden through Moses up to the cross, that represented the Old Covenant. And the Old Covenant, that age, that was all about behavior, the behavior of man.
Mm-hmm.
And man was separated from God. Mm-hmm. In other words, the way we picture it is God's up there and we're over here. Mm-hmm. We're separated from God. And this is about the Old Covenant law was about the behavior of man. Mm-hmm. And it also was about toil. Mm-hmm. Man is to toil. And so that was that period. Whereas Christ came in and said, hey, I'm going to take that burden away. Mm-hmm. And this issue of sin, I'm going to take that to the cross. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to fulfill that law, this Old Covenant law. Mm-hmm. And then it's going to be no more you over there and me over here. It's going to be I and you and me. Mm-hmm. So back here in the Old Testament, anyway, it's kind of basically what the message of Christ is I'm going to bring a new covenant. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to fulfill that law, and then there'll be oneness. Mm-hmm. And my gosh, he did it.
And he did it, right? He did.
He did it, and his last words was, "I finished it." But that's just unbelievable.
That's unbelievable.
I mean, when he said he fulfilled the law,
right?
And it said man died to the law, mm-hmm. and where there is no law, there is no sin. Mm-hmm. Well, what is there to measure us?
Right.
What is measuring our behavior? Well,
the judgment of others. The judgment of others who think the law wasn't fulfilled.
That's too much.
That is a lot.
That's too much.
So that's a lot. Like you and I have chatted about this. It's,
right.
No matter how many times I hear it, it's like it just sounds so good and it sounds so right. Yet, where did it go wrong? Like immediately, it just picked back up after he fulfilled it.
Well, yeah. I mean, basically, if you look at that in the New Testament, what was happening was the Jewish people were coming out of the synagogue and they were following this Jesus guy, right? Mm-hmm. And they were getting persecuted by the Jewish people because they're like, hey, get your
back into the law.
Get your back in the temple. Yeah. I mean, holy crap, the program. Right. The program, Yeah. This isn't going to work.
Program, right? The program won't
mess up the program.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so that's what was going on. And so, the Bible says we're supposed to rightly divide the Word of God. Well, the division is the Old Covenant versus the New Covenant. So if you're going to read the Bible, mm-hmm. you can't rightly divide the Word of God if you don't know the difference between the Old Covenant and the New Covenant.
And a lot of people, even myself, when you first describe that to me, I think, Old Testament, New Testament. But this is all Old Covenant.
Yeah.
The New Covenant is what people aren't talking about.
Yeah. I mean, you got to understand, Matthew, the Revelation was like 10 years. Right. We're not talking about 1,000 years. Uh-huh. Uh-huh. I mean, basically what he was trying to do is explain to people that all they knew was the Old Covenant. Mm-hmm. They didn't know anything else. And he's trying to explain to them about oneness, and he's trying to explain to them about the New Covenant, trying to explain to them about what he did on the cross for them. But it's just like us today, mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so that's what was going on. So he was talking to them about where they were at the time, mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But it's basically the Bible in a nutshell. So if you look at it, what man did was he ate from a tree called the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, and that's when religion was born mm-hmm. at the foot of that tree. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's what we operate off of. This is right and this is wrong. So what happens with man is they think that God thinks the way they think.
Right.
Matter of fact, they think that God should think the way they think.
Yeah. If I was God, I wouldn't be doing things this way.
Yeah.
Right. God needs to get my counsel.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So they think God thinks the way they think. And it's so amazing because this thing that they say they believe in says, my ways aren't your ways.
Mm-hmm.
My ways are higher than your ways.
Mm-hmm.
I have ways you know not of. But it's so amazing. But then they'll turn around and say, well, God wouldn't do that.
Right. A tragedy or...
Yeah, God wouldn't do that.
Right.
And the reason why is their knowledge of right and wrong tells them that.
Right.
Okay, in other words, if there's a right and wrong, then there's got to be a good guy that does the good stuff, and there's got to be a bad guy that does the bad stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And that just comes from that belief system.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been so much, it's like anything, if you're in dysfunction,
Mm-hmm.
that just becomes your normal.
Right.
And then what do? You start justifying your normal.
Mm-hmm.
Here you are, you're justifying your dysfunction.
Right.
Wow. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So it just becomes your normal. Well, yeah. Right? So I think that's one of the things I learned is that people think that God thinks the way they think.
Right.
And what I'm saying is, listen, if you want to know God, you need to understand He doesn't think the way you think.
Mm-hmm. And what's your definition of God? I've heard several stories of conversations you've had and chats with people, and you're like, look, here's what God to me, you know.
Well, listen, we use the G word, right? We call Him God.
Mm-hmm.
You know, man constructed word, right? But God is love,
mm-hmm.
and everything that is created is born out of love.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is man operates his eyes, and he operates off his right and wrong, good versus the evil belief system. Well, they look at something, they go, well, that certainly isn't love. You're trying to tell me that's love? That was born out of love?
Mm-hmm.
You see, it's just how man sees things. And that's why He says, don't walk by sight.
Mm-hmm.
So isn't that something?
Mm-hmm.
It's like we continually do the opposite.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Mm-hmm.
He says, don't walk by sight. Don't judge by outward appearance. Well, what do? We look out the window and we say, that's not good.
Good.
Don't try to tell me that's good.
Right.
So don't tell me there's a good God that would do that. So that's what you hear all the time. I mean...
And God is all.
Listen, yeah.
There's nothing that's not God. Right? There's not the good, the bad. It's all. We label
Right.
things.
I mean, Joseph says, oh, well, the problem is you saw it as bad and He meant it for good.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Job said, oh, we take the good but not the bad from God.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's why He said in Isaiah, I do both the good and the evil, saith the Lord.
Mm-hmm.
So the problem is we just can't, that's just too much.
Yeah.
It's just too much. So because of our belief system of right and wrong, listen, there's got to be a good guy and there's got to be a bad guy.
And good ways to
And
be and bad ways to be. And good ways to act and bad ways to act.
Right.
And the burden, if you're acting bad, you better have some burden to carry along with that.
Yeah, you should feel guilty about that.
Right.
What a message.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
Well, you should feel guilty. That's a good thing for you to feel guilty.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
So it's an amazing thing. So I hear this all the time in the church world when I was growing up. Well, you know, God allows these things, you know. Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, last thing I checked, there's only one creator.
Mm-hmm.
There's only one will and there's only one power.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess they think Satan's a creator.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know, that's the only thing I can think.
Right.
And they still think he's alive.
Because why would these...
And he's got to be alive. He's got to be alive.
Right.
Because who else is out there doing the bad stuff? So he's got to be alive. Even though, this book again, they're in the wilderness. It says, hey, if you look upon the serpent on the pole, ye shall live. Well, what's the next picture? Well, Christ on the pole. What does it say? It says that he became sin. Well, everything died. Listen, everything died on the cross. It says that man died, was buried, and resurrected as a new creature in Christ Jesus. So man died on the cross. The serpent died on the cross. Sin died on the cross. The law died on the cross. Everything died. It says the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, which was a fig tree, withered and died. Everything died. All of it. And that's why it says, old things passed away, behold, all things became new. All of it. Well, we can't. That's just too much.
Right.
It's too much.
Oh, man. Well,
You see what I'm saying? So what I'm saying to you is this idea of human beings, this idea of human beings separated from God, this idea of human being died.
Right.
So listen, there's no Dan.
Yep. No Tom. Right.
See, we think dying to self means, well, I'm a billionaire and, what I want to do today is go out and buy, 3 or 4 Lamborghinis. That's what I want to do today. But I'm going to die to self and I'm going to go buy a bunch of blankets and go help the homeless.
Do some more acts.
It's always behavior. It's always, and when you go to church, you're sitting there, you know what translation you get? Behavior. Everything's behavior. Okay. And so anyway, they think dying to self is, doing this behavioral thing. Well, listen, dying to self means there's no more self. That's just too much. So for me to say there's no Dan, then what's left? Well, there's only God. So when people come to me and say, what do you believe in? I say, well, I believe in God. But when I say I believe in God, it means there isn't anything else. There isn't anything else. I'm not doing anything. Listen, this is why Jesus says, I can of my own self do nothing. That's why the picture of King Nebuchadnezzar is out on the hill. He says, look at all things my hands have made. And the next picture is he's out in the grass gnawing on the pasture. And what does he do? He says, all the inhabitants of the world account for nothing. It says when we believe we're something, we deceive ourselves. I mean, you know what? Our eyes are lying to us. We keep believing our eyes. And our eyes keep telling us we are something. Well, guess what? We're not in the equation. We never have been in the equation. And I know that's too much. And I know when I'm saying these things, it sounds crazy.
So what's the takeaway for me and others who are hearing this? Like, okay, so what does that mean?
It's the good news. It's the gospel. It's the thing that sets you free so you can rest. How in the world can you rest under the law of sin and death?
You can't.
How can you rest?
You can't be good
and
enough.
so again, we're back to that period, the garden through Moses to the cross, where it was toiling. Well, after the cross, it was rest. Rest in what? Me. For my burden is light. Listen, take the government of your life and hand it over. So what's the difference? I mean, day to day, right here where we are, day to day. What's the difference? Well, we wake up in the morning, we say, well, Father, what do you want to do today? Not, man, I gotta get this guy.
I gotta do this. I gotta do this.
But I gotta make sure I get that taken care of. Well, you know what? Maybe he doesn't want to do that today.
So in everyday life terms, you and I chatting, like a lot of the stuff you talk about, I teach and taught from a human perspective. One of the things I learned long ago was resign as general manager of the universe. Like God's not praying like, holy cow, I hope Tom wakes up today and does his work because otherwise I'm in trouble, right?
It goes all through industry, business, everything.
So resign, and what you said, it gives you peace. It gives you the good news.
Yeah, listen, we are convinced we're making choices.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yep. Well, this one blows people's minds too. Mine as well.
Holy crap!
Right.
We're just convinced
making a difference, and bringing people to salvation, and doing God's work. Right?
Yeah. We believe the thing is we're convinced we're saving people. We're bringing people into the kingdom.
Mm-hmm.
But what does he say in Timothy? He says, "I saved everybody before the world began." It's just too much. It really is. It's too much. And this is what I keep saying. Listen, if you want to know God, you're not going to know God in your right and wrong, good versus evil belief system. It's impossible. It literally is impossible. You know why?
Can't be good enough.
Because that's not where he is.
Right.
That's not where he is. He's not in that belief system.
Mm-hmm.
He's not in that world system.
Meaning you're not being judged.
Yeah, it's there's no condemnation. So we do something, we see ourselves. Mm-hmm. We connect it to ourselves, and then here comes the guilt. And oh my gosh, I'm out of the will of God, and oh my gosh, I better go do some good things to get in, right standing. And, after I do some good things, hopefully it's good now, and here we can go now,
What a burden.
We just keep connecting ourselves to something that isn't ours.
And so in human interaction, like someone did you wrong per se, they asked for forgiveness, you forgave them.
Yeah, that's what the book of James is.
So we give that person forgiveness. Then a year or two passes, that person comes crawling back to us on their knees, asking for forgiveness for something we already forgave them for. We're like, what are you doing? What are you doing? Like, I forgave you years ago.
You're Christ, right? You're like,
what are you doing?
Right there.
I forgave you all those years ago.
Right.
Why are you coming back to me begging for forgiveness again? You've been holding this burden all these years when I've forgiven you. How can people relate to that?
Listen, why do you think they kept looking at the guy and going, what manner of man is he?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Who is this guy?
Mm-hmm.
So, it's absolutely right. Mm-hmm. God's just going, what in the world? What I got to do?
You're
what
forgiven.
in the world do I got to do?
Take that burden
I came
off,
down there in the flesh.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
What in the world I got to do?
So we're talking Bible. We're talking this. Well, there's other religions in this experience that we have. So how does that equate to all of this? Like you mentioned Timothy, where I've forgiven all. Like I don't know the exact quote, but all men were forgiven before the world was even created. And all this came.
Yeah,
to plan. Like how's it? Well, I have to tell people about the Bible. I have to tell people about Christ. You're saying you don't have to do anything. Right?
Listen, all we're doing is throwing this thing out there because obviously you don't hear this every day. Right. And here I am. I'm 61 years old now, man.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And
to me, I look back, it's just sad,
Well,
I'm...
Well, you're here, and you and I were chatting, and we're like, look, some may be willing to have an open mind and hear it, some may not, and we're not here trying to convince anybody. And by the way, Dan and I haven't talked about every aspect, but what he shared when I heard this is like, it kind of answers some of the questions I had that just didn't feel like the dots were connected. Right. And maybe that's what you're feeling now, and if so, great. That's a nice burden to have released. Right. But it's also a reprogramming of how we look at our daily adventures and how we go about in this worldly journey we call life.
Right. We just talked about some stuff. It's
much more. This is brief, yes.
Okay. What I'm saying is that, and there's people out there that know much more than I do. This is the thing. I mean, people think, well, it's the gospel according to Dan. Yeah, like I'm the only one. Listen. There's people out there that know what I know. They're just not sitting in a church pew, okay? Because they came out of that. They can't sit and listen to that stuff anymore. But what I'm saying is that there's people
they
out
can't sit
there.
and listen to it because that's the old law, and that died on the cross.
Right? They just
It's like
they can't listen to that
begging
message
for forgiveness
anymore.
after you've already been
They
forgiven.
just can't sit under that anymore.
Yeah.
But there are people out there that know this better than I do, and they know it's bigger than what I know, and they can articulate it so much better than I can. I don't know.
We just felt like sharing it and having a chat.
Yeah.
And that's it, right? So.
And that's kind of what this is, man.
Right.
But it's been an amazing. It's been an amazing. I can't even tell you.
Well,
It's
I know
just been an amazing thing.
when you shared these concepts and more that we'll probably dive into at another time, I had some questions, right? It was like, wait a second, what about this? What about that? What about this? What about that? And if you're watching this, you probably have some questions too, like, okay, well, I get it, but here's some questions that I have as some follow-up. So here, if you're watching this video, post your feedback, post your comments, post your questions. And what this is Dan, as he said, I'm not even associated with Dan. Like, this is just me sharing a message that, me through this vessel felt like sharing. And this is not going to convince people.
Yeah, this is another thing I'm going to say. What happens to us is we need chapter verse.
Right.
Okay? We got to see it. You can't give me chapter verse.
Right.
No. Listen, this is the difference between here's one more difference between the old covenant and the new covenant. Okay? We're supposed to be hearing today.
Yep.
And that hearing should just be natural.
Right.
We should be hearing God. It's just like turning in a radio station.
Frequency.
Yeah. And we think the problem is we're frightened of that because hearing, what if we're hearing the devil? What if we're hearing the bad guy? Well, if you're hearing the bad guy, it means you're not believing the bad guy's dead. Because he said, I've come to destroy the works of the devil. What are you trying to do? Tell me he failed?
He being
Is
Jesus.
that what?
Jesus failed? Right.
You're trying to tell me Jesus failed?
Yeah.
Is that what you're trying to tell me?
And it's up to you now, to save and finish the work of Jesus. That's a big burden to carry.
It's kind of like Jesus went and he did it all, but we're saying, now we got to take care of the unfinished.
Almost.
We got to take care of the unfinished business of Jesus.
It's on my shoulders.
We got to we're bringing them into the kingdom.
Yeah, it's on my shoulders.
And so people think they're getting saved because, the church says, well, if you do this, this, and this, there's my salvation. Well, really, the truth is what they're doing is just coming into recognition of the salvation that was done before the world began. And see, so man operates off this outward, they operate off of what they see. I just got saved. And I just got saved because I did this, and this. And now I'm saved. And I'm saved because they told me this is how salvation takes place. And so, since they're not seeing that happening with people, they think they're not saved. And so they're going to the bad place. Because they still believe the bad place is still alive.
So when you wake up and you're like, all right, Father, I'm excited to see what's in store for today, what's on the agenda, and use me as fulfilling that this journey, right? And that's it. And just be, right? That's just be. It's a much easier
all we're supposed to be doing is walking in peace and rest. And the only way we can do that is stop believing in what our eyes are telling us, because our eyes are lying to us. That's what's going on.
So accept
It's not that I don't understand. When I look out there, I get it.
Mm-hmm.
I get it.
The judgment.
But you know what he said? He says, what's that got to do with you?
Mm-hmm.
Those are all the cares of the world.
Mm-hmm.
What in the world? I've brought you into peace and rest. Don't you think I got that? I created it. Don't you think I understand it? Don't you think I know it? Really?
Yeah.
So really, this whole thing is about us believing in the thing we say we believe in. And the truth is, when I look back at my life, I had to say, guess what? I can say it all I want, but I don't really believe in him. Mm-hmm. And the reason why is because I still think I got to do something.
Right.
And it's complete unbelief.
Well, the judgment of the world, the judgment of others, the judgment of ourself, the right and wrong, goes back to the good and evil. And there's that ingrained indoctrination that we've had our entire life, even since children, in our households, in schooling, in society. Right, wrong, bad, good. And removing that judgment internally, and then being able to remove it externally. And I catch myself throughout the day. Well, for instance, there's what I would label as, that's sad. There was a group of children going from Mississippi to Orlando to Disney World, and in the van, it got run over by a tractor trailer, and 8 young children were killed from a church on the way to Disney. And then I thought of our conversations, and it's like, man, what type of God would do that? Is it a common question? And I thought, well, God, Father, I don't understand how and why.
Hey, if you're asking me that question, I don't know why.
Right.
But that's what the rooms are about.
Yeah.
I prepared a mansion. Here's the rooms. I'm going to walk you through the next room.
Yeah.
This is what that was.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So what am I doing now? The only thing I can do is, because if I say I believe in God, then all I can do is trust him in that thing.
Yeah. I don't understand it.
I'd be going, well, if I was God, I wouldn't be having that happen.
Right.
Absolutely. Who wouldn't?
Right.
But what I'm saying is I tell people all that, listen, what's going on is man with his pea brain is looking through a peephole and he thinks he knows something.
Right. Yep.
Listen, I don't know.
So you can still have the emotions. You can still feel the sadness. You can feel, and say, Father, I don't understand this. And even stuff happened to us. I don't understand why this is happening to me.
Right.
Yet I trust your will, your guidance, and
listen. He wants us to feel all of those things.
Yeah.
He wants us to feel all of that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's part of living. It's called living.
Yeah.
Okay. And right.
So the way I see this journey, it's a brief journey. Like they call it a tent or something. Like this is a brief journey we have. We call life, and we take it so seriously and making such a difference. I see it as like a trip to an amusement park. And guess what? There's probably people that go to amusement park and don't have the greatest time. Humbug, this is just crappy. Don't like it. Too crowded, too this, too that. And there's others who make the most of that amusement park journey. And I don't know. I know that this whole choice thing, but in doing this, I see there's people that choose this hell on earth or heaven on earth. Same situation, but different interpretation, similar to good and bad. Either my life is hell or heaven in this journey. So I know this flesh will be gone, snap of hopefully many decades from now, but it's not in my hands. But while I'm here, I'm doing my best to follow the path that I feel called to do.
They're creating their own hell. Mm-hmm. But gosh, buddy,
there's so much, right. So this is an intro. So this is an intro. We just decided, you know what? We've had these conversations. Let's throw the camera on. We'll see if it works. We haven't even tested to see if the audio is great. So apologies if it's not, but the message is the message, right? And if it can help remove some burden from some people or open up some questions that connect some dots, then that's what this was for. So if you have questions, by all means, put the questions here. We will turn the camera on again and probably go through some question and answers that come through. So let us know your feedback. Let us know any questions you have, and or any questions that we didn't get into here that you may have related to this or any of your journeys. And next time we turn the camera on, we may mention you and your question. So any parting words for our first introductory video today?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I guess the only thing I can say is that's the gospel. That's the good news. The good news is that you can't, but he can. Mm-hmm. And so I should rather have him take care of it than me. So yeah. God's good, man.
Yeah, I agree. Well, thank you.
I'm so glad I met you, Tom.
Me too.
It's pretty cool.
It's extremely cool. I call them divine appointments. And we'll probably, every single person that's in our interaction, I feel, is a divine appointment, because all is. It all is, right? Yeah. It's pretty cool. So hope you enjoyed this. There's much more to come. Make today great. We'll talk with you soon.